Hello, everybody, and welcome. It's another episode of Let's Talk Broncos. It's me and Frankie, though, the best edition, some say. I'm excited to be here. This is kind of like the dynamic duo right now. We're in draft season. It's me and Frankie. I'm here in Mobile right now. I'm catching it live, and Frankie's going over the film like double time. So we're getting both perspectives here, and I'm excited to get into the show. But Frankie, how are you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Like you said, it's that time of year for us. I feel like this is when we thrive. We're
Yes,
basically,
sir.
this is our I don't know, I'm trying to think of like a good basketball reference. We're like the Kobe Shack, and it's about to hit like April. So we got some playoff series coming up. We gotta put in that grind. We're about to really knock it out. But like you said, man, I've just been every day, 4 or 5 p.m. I'm itching. I'm waiting for the film to get posted. I kick the girlfriend into the other room, and it's time, and I
Yeah.
4 straight hours or however many hours of just let's watch all these one-on-ones. And like you said, it's been absolutely electric. I think this year, I mean, we previewed it beforehand. There is just so much talent at the Senior Bowl this year at every single
Yeah.
position group. Some really talented guys in the offensive line group, receiver group, defensive line group. We're seeing some fun guys kind of make names for themselves, I'd say, in the secondary and just in a lot of different spots. So, I mean, I think we both know we're going to have a lot of players to talk about. So, I mean, well, I guess how's your statement? What has been the best part of Mobile so far? Because you're there, you are in the Senior Bowl.
I would say just like running into people and meeting people, Frankie. Like it's kind of crazy. Uh I don't know. Like today I left a bar and I'm walking around and down just the road I see John Lynch. And I'm
Oh,
like, what the hell? Like that's crazy. Like that's John Lynch. That's Broncos Ring of Fame safety, and that's 49ers GM right there. I'm not the type to like stop somebody and ask for a picture. I don't want to bother people, but that was one where I almost felt like I had to. Uh, but yeah, like you might meet that person, or I was at the Oyster Bar yesterday, and I just got in conversation with the guy next to me, and it turned out he was a defensive line coach in the NFL. Like it's just crazy the different people you meet down here. I'm excited next year. I want to get a bunch of the Let's Talk Broncos crew down here, and it'll just be a blast.
we'll be running
But
it
yeah,
up.
it's fun.
I'm
We're
excited to
gonna
run
have
through all the
to.
barbecue. I've been seeing a lot of picture posts of just food that people have been getting down there. And I'm like, man, I gotta munch
Yeah.
some of that up. I don't got that food in Wisconsin, but that's awesome to hear, man. I mean, yeah, like you should ask for John Lynch for some notes based on how the 49ers have been drafting the past few years. I mean, he's probably got some great interior line prospects that he's just been picking out. I mean, they do such a good job every year, I feel like, of finding those day 2, day 3 guys too. So I'm sure Johnny Lynch has some names written down.
Indeed, indeed. I bet he does. I wish I stopped to talk to him now. I really wish I did. Um, but let's get straight into it, Frankie. I want to talk about the Senior Bowl, and let's start off with the national roster. We'll go just quick thoughts on the quarterbacks. I was talking to you about this at the beginning, and it just feels like the Senior Bowl or any really event, training camp included, it's kind of hard to evaluate quarterbacks, right? Training camp not so much included in this part, but these quarterbacks don't know the plays really. They're learning them for the first time. They don't have chemistry with any of these wide receivers. Timing is off so often. It's hard to evaluate these guys. Just give me some quick thoughts though on them. Is that has anybody stood out or anything like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we'll start with, since we're on the national team, I mean, Michael Penix and Bo Nix were one of the big stories, I'd say, coming to this week, especially for Broncos fans, obviously. Were these guys going to kind of take a hold of the reins and make themselves true first round contenders? Based on what I've seen this week, I don't think that's really been the case. Both of those guys, I'd say, had a little bit of an uphill battle really to get into the first round. It's Penix, was much more related to his kind of injury history and stuff like that. But we have seen kind of the inconsistencies, some of his spraying when it comes to his accuracy on outside of like the true 25-yard plus throws. When he's not throwing the ball downfield, he can just be a little bit inaccurate. We've seen that pop up from time to time. Bo Nix, I'd say I've just been pretty underwhelmed with his arm overall. I mean, and I think that's kind of what we were going to expect out of him. But I'd say, in years past, when we've seen possible first round guys show up, I think they've really played like first round guys. And I'm not sure we've necessarily seen that out of either of these guys, but they've been all right. I think they're kind of getting the job done fine. But like I said, no really standout name, I think, from anyone on the national roster. I think probably the biggest, factor in that is Sam Hartman, the third quarterback here, has been, I'd say, probably only like a tick below them. Like there hasn't been a massive gap between those three guys. And I think that's probably an issue when you talk about these are two guys trying to push to be first round, if not like top 15 picks. So I've been a little bit underwhelmed so far with the national roster. But like you said, judging quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl is so difficult. It's so much more about how these guys interview, how these guys kind of prepare, how they interact with the coaches. And my favorite personal day, at least, should be coming up tomorrow. They usually do red zone stuff on the third day of practice. And I think that's really such a better way to kind of, get a true glimpse at these quarterbacks. As you've kind of pointed out with some of these guys, you can kind of just focus on throwing underneath, making the smart, safe choice most of the time in these practices. When you're doing red zone drills, you don't really have that safety blanket to kind of rely on. You have to kind of push the ball into the end zone. So I'm a little bit excited to get to see some of those drills tomorrow. But yeah, that's been kind of my takeaway from the quarterbacks. Have you seen any really cool Michael Penix throws downfield? I feel like we haven't really gotten to see any of those long bombs yet.
I haven't seen a ton. I will be honest, Frankie. I haven't seen it. I have not seen it. I've seen a few where he's really good to the sideline throws, and that's something that he was really great in college as well. Seen a couple of those. Let me tell you what I think, why I think he's not for me in that top 15 situation. Frankie, let me know if you agree. He's pretty good, like straight line athlete, and it's weird talking about a quarterback like this, but when he's on the move and he's asked to flip his hips and make a throw, or flip his shoulders even and make a throw, for whatever reason, it seems so tough for him. Mm-hmm. It's like a body stiffness or something he has going on. He's like just stiff in different areas. Like he's a pocket quarterback, not because he can't run. He's a pocket quarterback because he has a hard time making throws outside the pocket. He can't throw on the run is something I'm starting to gather about Michael Penix at this point. I thought it was an issue for him in college. It's why pressure has been an issue for him. When he's pressured, he has a hard time throwing because he can't throw from these different arm angles. He can't throw from these different platforms. That's the issue I'm having with Penix right now as a quarterback. I think Bo Nix shows more of that. I just don't think he's as good of a thrower as Penix is. Mm-hmm. So now we're in like this weird area. Do I really like either of them? I'm not so sure. I like Nix the athlete more. If I were like, okay, I'm going to take one and develop them, it would be Nix over Penix for me, just because of the athlete he is. I think something that's forgotten about with him is his legs. Like he can really just run the football. That's something that Nix can do that Penix can't. So that's kind of just my overall thoughts on these quarterbacks. Neither have been that great though for me.
Yeah, I completely agree, which is a little bit disappointing. But then getting on to the running back group, it's been kind of running backs are kind of hard. They're another group that's hard to evaluate, especially when we talk about these practices that aren't fully padded. They aren't playing with full contact, which when we talk about evaluating guys, especially I feel like the good rookies and young running backs that come into the league, at least in recent years, so much of it is either about the true ability to have angle breaking speed or short area quickness, or you need to have elite contact balance. And both of those are kind of really hard to display in Mobile, where you're not fully tackling guys to the ground. So you don't know if guys are beating arm tackles truly or not. And you're not, guys aren't laying into each other. So you're not seeing guys being able to withstand hits. So really, I think a lot of what you're evaluating, at least a lot of what I'm doing, is just seeing how they look running routes in the 1v1s against the linebackers and the safeties. And then usually these guys get the opportunity. They'll do one-on-one pass blocking drills as well, which a few years ago, Kyron Williams was really talented in that drill. Obviously, he was an all-pro running back this year for the Rams, who was a bit of an underwhelming athlete, but again, just did a lot of these little things well that we're talking about here. I'm trying to think of who the back was last year, was also a really good pass protector. But so I just wanted to kind of highlight that before I get into these backs, because again, it's hard to evaluate these guys on how they are as runners just because they aren't really getting the opportunity to showcase that. But that being said, I really liked seeing Rasheen Ali as a receiver. He was the Marshall running back who I haven't gotten to take too much of a look at. He was just kind of running some really nice routes. They had him on a couple of option routes, on a couple of angle routes, and I think he just showed a really nice ability to kind of create separation. I mean, so many of these routes we're talking about, especially when you're saying you're against linebackers, are near impossible to, not near impossible, but they are really tough covers. When you talk about these 230-pound linebackers are in one-on-one situations, so they're playing just head-up man coverage. It's not like they're, just passing off guys in zone coverage. They're at so much of a disadvantage anyways, but I thought Rasheen Ali was really impressive. Kamani Vidal had some really nice receiving reps as well, as did Dylan Laub, but I don't know. I came away most impressed with Rasheen Ali, but I think honestly all these backs looked all right. I didn't really see any of them have any glaring weaknesses. But again, I didn't really see too many reps where their vision really stood out for any of these guys. I'd say much more of the kind of good run reps I saw were about a lot of the offensive line prospects we'll talk about later. What did you think about the national team's running back group? Did you get a decent chance to get a look at them?
Yeah, you know what, Frankie? I have a hard time with this for the reasons you said. I'm not at these events really taking many notes of the running backs. So I don't have a lot of notes on them. I really don't. What I will say is that nothing stood out. Like if you remember Tyjae Spears last year, his game perfectly translates to a Senior Bowl setting because he's such a good route runner out of the backfield and he's doing all these other things like that. I'm not going to say any of these guys are good or bad. I haven't watched the film. I watched Marshawn Lloyd a little bit this year, and he looked good at USC. These other guys, it's hard for me to say, are you good or bad based off the Senior Bowl? Just because it's like a lot of the what running backs do, you're not doing in the actual events like this. You're not. So I don't have any thoughts on these running backs, truthfully.
Yeah, no, me neither. So I'm good to move on to the Reavers. I will say, I guess, like, as far as the measurement goes, you guys obviously can't see like the measurements over here: height, weights, arms length, wingspan, all that good stuff. These guys do have some decent size, I will say. Like I didn't really like Isaiah Davis was a guy I watched who also ran some decent routes. I didn't realize he's 6'2", so that's kind of something to keep an eye on. But yeah, not too much I got about the running back group. But probably one of the more, I mean, the receiver group. I think every single year, especially now that we're in the era of 7-on-7 kind of dominating, getting to watch receiver one-on-ones is I think probably the highlight of the Senior Bowl, and O-line and D-line one-on-ones, obviously for me and you especially. But yeah, this receiver group was really strong. Who out of this, I think, I'll just ask, who impressed you the most out of this receiver group for the national team?
I think Roman Wilson. I think Roman Wilson has been the most impressive out of this. Just the quicks, the speed, the route running, and then mixed in with I can also make tough catches. Like all of that together equates good wide receiver. And that's what Roman Wilson brings. He's been consistent the entire week out of Michigan, and it makes me even wonder more why my boy McCarthy wasn't throwing more at Michigan.
I'm so glad you said it because I had this. I was like, man, this guy's so good that it makes me question JJ McCarthy almost more because, like, it's like you said, every person he matched up with, he was creating easy separation. He was beating press coverage. He was making really impressive catches. This was a standout week for Roman Wilson, where I think like, man, we might have another top 64 receiver on our hands. He's a guy that
absolutely.
Do you think he has the ability to move outside? I don't know if he necessarily has that ability to kind of move into that Z role, but what do you think?
From what I've seen, he's tough enough. Like, okay, if I'm translating, I haven't sat down and watched. I think I've watched 2 Roman Wilson games of film, and I've watched all the practice at Senior Bowl so far. But from what I've seen so far, he has the toughness to where I do think he can work on outside.
Yeah.
Like, I think that he can take press coverage on from what I've seen. Like, I don't think contact's going to phase him all that much. And now, obviously, film from what I watch can change that. But I think, like, I had at Sean Payton's visor online, Matthew, he told me that he reminds him of Christian Kirk, and I don't mind that comp. Like that's something that I see from him is that ability to be versatile inside and out, make tough catches over the middle, also win deep outside. Like Roman Wilson has a lot of traits that you have got to love. He's had a huge week here at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, no, I want to completely agree. I mean, I'd say too, as far as the being able to play outside thing, I mean, we're seeing him win on outside routes. It's not like he's only separating on these short underneath routes. He's not only separating on slot fades. He's able to win on like these outside dig routes. What were you going to say?
There was a standout rep from Roman Wilson today. At the end of practice, they were doing like the whole team huddled around. It felt like a best on best type deal.
Love that.
Would be like one O lineman versus one D line, and then they would automatically just change to a wide receiver versus corner type deal. And it was Quinion, Mitchell, who we're going to talk about
We'll
later,
get to later, yeah.
versus Roman Wilson. Roman had a great route. Quinion kind of stumbled out of it. It was more of a Quinion miss than a Roman make, but ended up doing a deep, or not deep, I would say intermediate to the sidelines throw. Roman one hand behind him, catches it, gets 2 feet in bounds on the sidelines. It was a standout play. I thought it was one of the best plays of the American team's practice or national team's practice. It was fantastic.
Yeah, no, he's been a guy all or for the past couple of days that's just been consistently creating separation and making a lot of big plays. But I'd say like it's interesting. I mean, we talk about how this isn't the best thing to evaluate a lot of these other guys because of how difficult it is for receivers. I'd say it's so interesting because of the type of receiver you are playing such a factor in how well you do. We're seeing guys like Ricky Pearsall is a great example. Ladd McConkey, who we'll get to a little bit later. These guys, Jacob Cowing is another good example. These guys that are just true, like it's nearly impossible to cover these guys in a one-on-one setting because of how quick they are, because of how fast they are, because of how twitchy they are, But when you put them on an NFL field with multiple guys that can really hit you, I don't want to say they shrink up a little bit, but they disappear a little bit because it's a lot more difficult to kind of have that big of an impact when you're facing 11 guys versus just one. So, but that being said, I do think Roman Wilson is a guy that I think kind of is doing that, but is also kind of showcasing more. But then I did want to get into these other guys like Ricky Pearsall has been, I mean, he was the guy I think you watched a few games of before you went to the Senior Bowl. I think I saw a quote he had from, I think it was Justin. I don't remember what his full name is, excuse me, but Justin M., who's been having Senior Bowl interviews going up every single day for the Draft Network. Ricky Pearsall said, I'm a professional route runner. And I believe it. I mean, he does such a good job tempoing out his routes. And I mean, he's just been unguardable. He actually brings some decent size to the position too. Let's see, he's a 6'0", 193, which compared to a lot of these true, slot only guys that I think are maybe going to struggle a little bit more with playing on the outside, he at least has a little bit of a body type to be able to deal with that a little bit. So I thought Ricky Pearsall has been another guy that's just been really fun to get to watch.
Yes. And you know what, Frankie, you brought up like the athleticism. Like Roman Wilson, you can look at his skill set and be like, he's made for this.
Yeah.
7-on-7 1-on-1s. Ricky Pearsall doesn't have the elite speed. He doesn't have the elite, really any athletic trait, in my opinion. Ricky Pearsall is just such a nuanced route runner. He tempos his routes so well. He'll play with your blind spot as a DB. That's how he wins. He's an amazing route runner, and he's really good, tough catch maker as well. Excuse me. He's been amazing. His film matches too. I think Ricky Pearsall, he probably doesn't have the ceiling, or NFL scouts are probably going to say he doesn't have the ceiling as some of these other guys because of the physical traits. But you're going to get yourself a reliable wide receiver with him for sure.
100%. I mean, it's very funny that, or I guess it's very fitting that he played at the University of Florida because, I mean, he just plays like one of those South Florida receivers, like even though, he's a white dude, like he creates a ton of separation, like he just busts dudes out. He's throwing wild routes at guys and he's able to create a lot of separation. Another guy I wanted to highlight was Javon Baker, who's kind of another guy who's just a route running specialist. He's been breaking a ton of ankles. He's been creating a lot of separation. Malachi Corley is an absolute tank. That dude's 215. It was like the first rep, I think, of national team practice in one-on-ones where I think it was Kalen King who I don't want. Kalen King hasn't had the best couple days, but he tried to press Malachi Corley at the line. I don't know if he was told to do this or if he did it on his own. Not a good decision if he chose to do it on his own. And Malachi Corley threw this man 5 yards off the ball and then just ran a little like drag. And you're not gonna keep up with him if he already threw you out the gym. So yeah, Malachi Corley living up to the name of just I'm a really big, strong, fast guy who's probably gonna fill that Debo role for your team if you need it. But he's another guy too, where, I mean, we'll get into him and Xavier Legette later, where I don't think even though I think they're having decent weeks, Xavier Legette, I'd say less than Corley. He's actually had a little bit of a struggle. These are two guys that kind of like the running backs don't get to showcase what they do best. These are two receivers that the best things they do is after the catch, I'd say, or no, the best things they do is after the catch. So when you have these guys that they aren't getting tackled after the catch, they aren't really having to fight through contact. I don't think we're even getting to see the best of what a guy like Malachi Corley or Xavier Legette can really do in this type of setting. So Malachi Corley is a guy that I think, coming in, a lot of people were hyping up, who has, I think, made plays, but maybe hasn't had the big blow up plays. And same with Legette. And I think that's just kind of why I wanted to just highlight that.
Absolutely. Corley had a reverse today, Frankie, at practice, or it was like during the team drill, it was like, okay, now this is more like what I want you to be used like, and it popped. I like Corley. He's who remembers when the Broncos drafted Carlos Henderson? He's kind of like what Carlos Henderson was supposed to be like.
You don't want to say that. You don't want to say that. All right. Any other receivers you want to touch on? I haven't really been super. Luke McCaffrey was a guy we were talking about who you got to interview today. Shout out Luke McCaffrey, Ed McCaffrey's child, who he had a standout practice today in day 2. I think he was really impressive. But any other thoughts on these receivers we got left on the board?
No, I thought Luke had a good day though. He showed me more than what I figured he would do. So yeah, that's all I got there. It would be cool if the Broncos got a McCaffrey finally.
Getting onto the tight end group then. It's fun kind of like looking at through the lens of, I don't know, like I only really like day 3 tight ends now, but now that I think I have that burned in my brain, I'm much more comfortable. Like I think AJ Barner and Theo, honestly, all 3 of these guys, I think have each had their moments. Theo Johnson is a guy I really like who brings, I think, that prototypical size. He's 6'6", he's 257, so he's basically 260. Moves incredibly well. I think he's going to test really well. I mean, his frame is massive. He's made a lot of big catches just with his hands on, maybe not the best placed footballs. So I've been pretty impressed with him. I don't know if you've been any of these other guys you've been really impressed with, but I think all 3 of these guys are like, again, day 3 picks at tight end, and none of them I really hate. I've been impressed with Brevin Spanford in some blocking situations. AJ Barner just seems like that. Like he literally just gives me such classic day 3. Like he can do a little bit of route running. He's not a big athlete. He can block a little bit, but like he's decently well-rounded. Like I decently like all these guys. Any thoughts you've got on these 3 dudes?
I just want to comment on the size of these guys. Like these aren't. I mean, we're talking about 6'6", 257, 6'6", 267, and 6'5", 251. These are tight ends, right?
Yep.
These are big guys. This tight end group hasn't stood out that much to me just in general. I don't know. I think the other team's tight ends are maybe more flashier and built for this type of event than these guys are. Right. I'll be honest. Theo Johnson is interesting, though.
Let me throw it. If Denver was to throw a 5th or a 6th round pick at any of these 3 guys, would you hate it? Because I think that these kind of body types would fit what the Broncos need in their tight end room actually pretty well, depending, I guess, what happens with Troutman.
Absolutely, I would do it. I mean, look at the kid from Minnesota here, 6'6", 267.
And he blocks well too.
Big ass kid, and this is a specialist. This is a guy that's going to make a football team. And if he goes out there and he can block well, he's going to be on a football team for a while. There just aren't many tight ends that have that body size. And then Theo Johnson, I mean, he's your typical do-it-all type of guy, right? He's going to be able to block and catch at the next level, and hopefully he continues to develop there. But, yeah, I wouldn't be mad at all if the Broncos put a 5th-round pick in any of these guys.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the offensive line, which has been really just like standout for me. I swear really the interior group for me. I mean, we knew the tackle group, I think, coming in was pretty strong. It's a really good tackle class, a lot of big names. But on the interior, I mean, there's so many centers and guards. I'm just like, you're a guy. And I mean, in recent years, when we talk about what the Rams have been able to do at their guard position, we've seen the Steelers kind of be able to do to kind of rework that group. The Texans have been able to kind of move around some pieces and find some late round guards. Like, day 3 guards are things that I think you're able to kind of build your unit with. And I mean, I think we've seen a lot of guys kind of make names for themselves. And especially when you talk about Denver, they have a couple questions on who's all going to be back along the offensive line next year. When you talk about center and left tackle, I think you have a few positions that I think you might want to get a little bit younger at. If you're talking about possibly moving off of right tackle soon, I don't think me and you are totally in love with Ben Powers, where if they wanted to throw a day 2, day 3 pick at one of these guys we're going to talk about, I wouldn't hate that decision at all. I think that's kind of one of the smart ways we talk about building up through the trenches. And there's a lot of guys, I think, when, we've talked about, you need a guy that's very scheme versatile to play in Sean Payton's system where you're running a lot of gap, a lot of zone, a lot of literally every type of run concept. I think there's a lot of guys that fit that here. So let's start going through here. We'll start top to bottom. I want to start first. I'm just going to go straight to Jackson Powers Johnson. You cool with that?
Easy call. He's been the best player on that one. Frankie, go ahead. Tell me. I think he's been the best pound-for-pound offensive lineman in this group.
Maybe the best player at the Senior Bowl so far, if I'm being completely honest. Like, I'll have to kind of think
I have another one. I'll tell you.
Okay.
I don't hate that take, but when we get to my guy, I'll let you know.
Okay, but like, man, this is a guy that measured in 6'3", 330, and he has 32-inch arms. Those measurements for a guy that's probably going to play center at the next level, that's a big boy. That's like Ryan Jensen level of like, this is a guy that is a guard playing center. He has looked the part in one-on-ones. He has been dominant, like truly dominant. Again, I'd say one of the better, if not top 3 guys at the Senior Bowl so far this year. And he isn't one of those guys that just played a few snaps and then stopped. No, he's played both days so far, has looked excellent every single drill he's been a part of. They've been lining him up at left guard, center, and right guard. I don't know if I've really seen him truly lose a rep at any spot. Like, he's just been excellent. He brings so much power to his game. He's long. He has good feet, so he moves well. Like, there's really not much more you can say. This is probably a top 25 pick who is only helping himself more. It's something I was kind of like, there were 2 centers coming this week that were both kind of those battling for center one with him and Zach Frazier, both supposed to be here. Zach Frazier ended up not, I don't know if he didn't attend or if he had an injury. He's not practicing this week, though. And I think we've kind of seen Jackson Powers Johnson is just kind of sprinting away with the center one spot right now. And I mean, the more we watch him and the more like, again, he put on incredible Oregon tape this year. They were a very, they're a blue collar team that a lot of teams have eyes on. Like, this is a guy I think that's going to go really high. We talk about center being a position that isn't super high valued, but again, this is a guy that can play all 3 of the interior O-line spots. I think is a true, not only, we were saying this right before, not only day one starter, but true like plus day one starter with big upside. Absolutely. Like, this is a great player, arguably the best player at the Senior Bowl. Jackson Powers Johnson has been incredible. Anything to add?
Yeah, I like, there was one rep in particular, I forget who it was rushing against him, but he hit a spin on him. Just the patience you see from Jackson Power Johnson on that rep to recover from that spin and then anchor off of it when they hit into a bull rush off of it. It's just like, man, that is a high-level rep from a college offensive lineman right there. Wow, in one-on-ones. He's fantastic. I don't really have much else to add there. I think he's going to be great. And Frankie, if you're looking, Lloyd Cushenberry's a free agent. Maybe the Broncos look at Jackson Powers Johnson as the center of the future, someone that probably comes in and is a more effective run blocker, I think, for the Broncos than Cushenberry brought this year. I think Cushenberry was a really smart player and had a really good year. But maybe I think that's a very big possibility there. I want to ask you about Talise Fuaga from Oregon State, Frankie. What have you seen from him?
So I haven't gotten to watch a lot of Oregon State before he got to the Senior Bowl, but I know a lot of people have been projecting him to, be that top 20, top 15 pick. He's kind of that in the mix for O-Tackle 3 with J.C. Latham and a few other guys. He's been impressive. He's been really dominant in one-on-ones. Excuse me. A lot of really good grip strength. He's gotten beaten a couple times by a few of the more like super explosive passers, which there are a few of in this class. You talk about like Adisa Isaac from Penn State, who's been really fast around the edge. He did have a hold yesterday. He's had a couple ups and downs and reps, but he's been overall really solid. Another guy I think that is going to enter the league as a true day one starter. This is a really strong tackle class. He's been great. Again, I just want to highlight, like, he is just so strong. His anchor is incredible that, once he gets your hands on you, the rep is pretty much over. It's just kind of a question for me of how consistently he can get those hands on you.
Yeah. What impresses me? People, I think, let's read his size right here. Almost 6'6", 6'5". He's 332 pounds. This is a huge guy, and we're going into a league, Frankie, where this is starting to become more and more normal, which is crazy to me, that my tackles are going to be 332 pounds, and I'm asking them to play on an island and move like the way they are. And Fuaga is just another example of this, like this type of tackle entering the NFL. Rare ability to move at his size. That's what I would say about him. I'd also say about him, the best run blocker, I think, of this entire offensive line class. He wants to hit people. That's the unteachable stuff you get from him compared to these other tackles in this class. He goes out there and he just dominates. Like, I want to see people move. Like, if you're out there looking for an offensive lineman that when you turn on the film, he's moving people, that's Fuaga. He's moving people constantly. So I'm a big fan of him. But you're right. He has gotten beaten a few times. I think his technique lacks a little bit. But where I would compare him, like we're going to get into it in the next roster, but Guyton, I think Fuaga, like he has more of that unteachable, like I'm going to move people than Guyton. Guyton's similar in that he doesn't have much technique involved in what's going on. So I don't know. We'll get there later with him.
Yeah. And then I guess I've got three guys I want to mention that just like have really impressed me this week to the point where like these are guys I think I view as like, again, can step in maybe as day one starters on a lot of teams. I think are probably all top 3 round picks for me, top 100 players. First guy I want to mention is Kingsley Egwakun, the Florida center. Probably said that wrong, but whatever. He has been like, again, we talk about this center class has really impressed me. We'll get into some of those guys on the other roster, but I mean, right behind Jackson Powers Johnson, this is another guy that has been dominant one-on-ones. Team drills is really good, has played the run game very well, hits his landmarks really well. He climbs really effectively. He's really good in zone blocking stuff. He's really good in pass pro. He had a couple of snatch traps wins, which, are some of my favorites, where he's just, he's doing this on the interior. So, he's grabbing guys like Michael Hall, slapping down the arms and then just laying on top of them. So he's been excellent. He is a guy that I truly like. After this weekend, I'll have to go back and watch some Florida film, but I wouldn't be shocked if I come away saying this is a top 75 player. And if Denver said you're the starting center next year, I don't think I'd have a problem. Or if a lot of teams said that. Next guy, have you gotten a chance to see any Kingsley?
He's a perfect example of, like, I'm just going to echo what you said. He's a great example of a guy that I think is shown out now need to go back and watch the film of, which is like a huge thing in this. Like, I don't know. That's a huge part of this. I haven't watched every single player on here's film, 4 or 5 games of all of them. That's impossible. So I'm catching players for the first time as well. He's one of them, and I'm going to have to go back and watch his film because he's been impressive. Yeah,
he's been awesome. Another guy I want to mention, this is a guy that, like, throughout the process has been so interesting to me because, so Roger Rosengarten, who's who I'm talking about. Roger Rosengarten is another guy that, like, he's going to be a starting right tackle somewhere. And especially when we talk about how many of these teams are running the Shanahan, we spam outside zone offenses. That's what Roger Rosengarten does really well. He's an experienced offensive tackle, kind of, we'll get into Christian Jones, but kind of like Christian Jones, who just has, he just brought so much starting experience to Mobile, and he's using that to his advantage. You see just technical snaps out of this guy, really quick feet, decent size. This is a guy that just moves really well. He's powerful in the running game. I have been beyond impressed with Roger Rosengarten. We talk about their other offensive tackle, Fountainu, and how, you're not sure if he's going to be able to live at tackle in the league. I think we've talked about good tackle. I think a great interior player. Roger Rosengarten is a guy I look at him like, this is just going to be a solid offensive tackle for your team. He's going to play on the right side, which, that'll be a thing we kind of get into closer to the draft. A lot of these guys are right tackles only, but he's another guy I looked at and I'm like, man, if you're a team and you're saying, I don't really want to invest these top 25 picks in an offensive tackle, but we'd still like to throw someone out there that might be able to start for us this year. Like, this guy's really good. I've been blown away with Roger Rosengarten. Have you got a chance to take a look at him at all?
Absolutely, Frankie. And like the last one, I'd echo what you said. He's been shocking to me. When I watched the Washington film, I was out there watching Fountainu at the other side. That's who I was out there watching. And Fataanu's an amazing offensive lineman. So I don't know. Like, it's been impressive to me seeing what a lot of these guys do. You know what's even crazier, Frankie, is I think the American squad has better offensive linemen.
Yeah.
I do. That's the craziest part. Like, I've been more impressed by the American roster, the other team's roster, than I have this one on the offensive line. This Illinois kid too. He's been up and down, but
Isaiah Adams. Reps. That was the guy I mentioned before in our preview show. I've actually really liked Isaiah Adams. He's played left guard and right guard at the Senior Bowl so far this year, which, again, we talked about in the pre-draft show. He was supposed to be the starting guard for Illinois this year, and then their right tackle got hurt, so he was forced to play outside. This was the third guy I was going to mention who I think, again, I see a top 100 player that's just going to be a starting guard somewhere. This guy has a really good frame, moves well, and just is impactful in the run game. And, I mean, yeah, like you play the position with that much technique, with that type of frame. It's hard for me to look at you as anything less than a guy that can contribute at the next level. And when we talk about teams just needing offensive linemen, he's a guy that can play multiple spots for you right away. He's a plug and play, I think, starter. Like, I really like Isaiah Adams as well. So those are my last thoughts on the offensive line group. Anyone else? But again, all these guys I think have had pretty good weeks. I only see a couple guys who I won't say their names. A couple guys on here who I think it is fun. I don't want to sound mean. It is funny when there is like a guy at the Senior Bowl who kind of stands out in a not good way, because I think so many of these guys like are impressive, as weird as that might sound, that when you get that one guy that like time after time when they come up, they're struggling or they get beaten, it gets pretty obvious. Like that guy really sticks in your brain. So there were a couple of guys on the national team O-line that fit that bill, but I won't mention them. But getting to the defensive line, this was another group that I think had some guys that really stood out to me. Who was your favorite out of this interior defensive line group that performed on the national team?
My favorite. This is tough. Give me yours first, Frankie.
So I would probably go with either Gabe Hall or Michael Hall. Not really. I mean, maybe they're related. Honestly.
Gabe Hall has been insane.
Gabe Hall has a really impressive first step, and he actually measured in a lot heavier than I thought he would. Honestly, a couple of these guys did. Like him and Michael Hall, I knew were going to be so much based on their first step just because of what they were on their tape. They're really, those kind of pure pass rushing interior defensive linemen. They're not going to be able to withstand double teams too well, but Gabe Hall's first step has been better than I thought it would be, and he measured in at 290, which is plenty fine. And then Michael Hall, then, I've been really impressed with his ability to stand up double teams, which I was just knocking what he should be able to do. This is a guy who's only 280 pounds, but I mean, we were showing clips last week about guys who were able to do the knee bend to be able to withstand doubles when we were talking about whatever, it doesn't matter. But he's another guy who kind of has that flexibility. They were testing him in that on day one, and he was able to withstand them. Whereas a lot of these other guys, when you talk about Keith Randolph and Brandon Dorless, weren't able to withstand double teams as well, just because of who they are and what alignment you're going to kind of have them playing themselves in. So Michael Hall and Gabe Hall to me were the two guys on the interior that helped themselves the most. I've been maybe a little underwhelmed with Brandon Dorless, who I thought would kind of be another one of those guys to stand apart. He had a couple good reps today. Okay, that's really good to hear, because he's just another guy that I expected to stand out above these guys, and I think he's just been kind of a part of the mix,
He did. He had a couple really good reps today. I was just watching the film from today. Brandon Dorless had a much better day, I thought, today, especially in one-on-ones than he did the day before. Whatever you made of Latu Laitu, real quickly.
So it's actually fun. So I guess it's always fun seeing those players that maybe don't have the best day one, but then have a much better day two. And I think Latu is a guy who didn't have a great day one. I think Latu kind of came out trying to play more of an explosive edge rusher style, which anyone who's watched Latu, like, that's just not really his game. Like, he's not that explosive athlete. Like, he's not the Von Miller, Micah Parsons type of edge rusher that's just going to be doing such freaky things that you're losing your mind. What Latu is a technician who has incredible hands. Like, his handwork is ridiculous. And today you saw him, like, he said, okay, I'm taking off the Superman cape and I'm putting on the Batman utility belt. That's the best comparison I can make. I'm taking off the Superman cape. I'm not going for these spins or these long arms or all this stuff. I'm going to put on the utility belt. I'm going to hit you with my arm overs. I'm going to show you my billions of counter moves that I've developed over years and years of playing at UCLA. And he was fantastic today. I mean, I messaged you yesterday. I was like, man, sorry.
I mean, you're speaking about the counters. Did you see that one play where he came off the spin and hit the swim right off of it? It was like, that's not college.
No,
that's not. You don't just have, like, when you're even talking about counters, and you see so many times during scouting reports, if you guys read edge rushers or defensive line scouting reports, they're all going to be like lacks counters, lacks counters, lacks counters. Even a guy that I wouldn't say lacks counters didn't do it as effectively as Latu did on that rep.
Yeah.
That was so impressive, going from one move to the other as quick as he did. No time wasted. That's the type of stuff when you're talking about Latu is really refined. That is exactly what people are talking about. I wish I had that rep up to pull up and show you guys right now. But he's been fantastic in that area, at least.
Yeah, and I mean it was one of those days that, like, again, after day one, I was really sitting here like I was kind of, I don't want to say questioning myself, because like the Senior Bowl, as we've been talking about, is kind of a chance to these guys that we haven't gotten the chance to be like, oh, let me go back and look at these guys, maybe more of a chance to confirm priors, but you're not really. I don't think you should really ever fully base, or not even, I think you shouldn't fully base an opinion off of a player fully based on Mobile, just because of obviously all the things we've said about how unique of a practice environment it is compared to a real life game setting. But I think what we saw out of Latu on day one kind of had me questioning, like, man, is this truly the edge, or in my mind, the edge one in this class? Is this a top 15 pick compared to, the Jermaine Johnsons of the world we've seen in Mobile in years past, who is like, the first time you see a one-on-one against offense that you're like, oh yeah, like that guy is a dude. Like that guy is going to come in and get 50 pressures. Latu, I didn't feel that way yesterday. Today I said that's a guy, and that's really good for his draft stock.
Absolutely. Let's move on here, Frankie. I'm going to ask you just about one linebacker. Give me your best linebacker, inside linebacker in this. To me, it's pretty simple.
On the national team, Peyton Wilson's been really good against the run. I've been really impressed with Peyton Wilson's play against the run. He's been so good coming downhill. Just really good eyes, really good instincts. He plays blocks really well. He's got good size compared to a lot of these other guys that are coming in the 220s. He's like 234. Just, yeah, I'd say Peyton Wilson has been the best. And I think that's not really too surprising. I think he's a guy that a lot of people wanted to see come in and be the best, and I think he's been that. JD Bertrand was a guy that I think impressed me a lot today, though, as well. He's just another guy that he's got a really wide frame, so he's really tough for running backs to be able to block, or, smaller centers if they're trying to get to him on the second level. So I was impressed with Bertrand today as well.
Absolutely. I would go Peyton Wilson as well. And then I'm just going to lay it out all about all the DBs, safeties included. Give me two. Who are you most impressed with from the DBs? And I think there's one very, very obvious here, and I'm going to take him real quick, Frankie, and add on. I think so. We mentioned earlier, you said Jackson Power Johnson might be the best player at the Senior Bowl. Quinyon Mitchell, I think pound for pound has been the best player at the Senior Bowl from Toledo. I haven't seen him really lose reps, which is crazy in this setting. Like, he's been terrific today. He had all the hype yesterday, all the buzz. When they came on the field today, I will tell you what, Frankie, just being around all the other people scouting, everyone had their eyes on him. Everyone's like, can he repeat what happened? Like, that was the buzz. And what did he do? He immediately repeated what happened. He's breaking up passes over the middle. He has an interception on a deep post. He did the exact same thing. Quinyon Mitchell is fantastic. Why isn't he going to be considered a top 20 pick now is kind of what I would ask people. He's projected to run somewhere in the 4.3s. He's 6 foot. He passes all the physical limitations, and then he puts this tape up against the best competition. I think he's been great.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was very impressed. I mean, his day one, I said it today on the tweeter that, like, I mean, we've been watching, I think I've been kind of closely watching like the tape of the Senior Bowl for 3 years now. And I think by far yesterday, what I saw out of Quinyon Mitchell is the best corner performance I think I've seen, like for a single day. Like, as you've said, corners in these 7-on or in these 1-on-1 with the wide receiver drills, they are at such an incredible disadvantage, especially when you're up against the Ricky Pearsalls, all the incredible professional route runners that we were talking about. Quinyon Mitchell did not struggle with a single guy, a single body type. He was pressing guys. He was playing trail. He was shadowing receivers. He was playing zone. He was making plays left and right. You do not see this many plays on the ball made in a setting like this. You just don't. And he was still doing it. He was breaking the ball up, as you said. I know he had the end today. I think he might have also had one yesterday. Like, he has been everywhere. His ability off the line of scrimmage to bump and run with guys is ridiculous. As you said, he's an incredible long speed athlete. To be able to keep up with some of these really impressive receivers downfield is just incredible. He plays balls well through receivers' hands. He's an incredible competitor. Like, as you said, this is a guy to me who, after what we've seen, I don't see how this guy falls out of the top 32. This is a guy with incredible pedigree coming out of school. He just won the Jim Thorpe Award. Like, has a long career of making plays on the ball in the air. Like, I think he's had a lot of career interceptions as well, which is a stat that usually like translates pretty well. So yeah, I think Kenyon Mitchell is really good. And then last couple of DBs I wanted to mention just before we go to the next one. Who was it? Cole Bishop in one-on-ones against tight ends and running backs. Really impressed. I really liked what he was doing. He was playing really
Like
tight,
box
smothering
safety,
coverage
I
all
think.
day. I don't know. I think he could maybe play a little bit of nickel. I don't think he's too undersized. He's 6'1", 209. So I think he can actually move around a little bit too. Like, I don't think he's purely limited to one role. And then the other guy I just want to mention real quick is Sion Vaki, just because he was really good playing safety and linebacker. And then the coaches said, we want to see you at running back. He was running some really nice routes and one-on-ones on running back. And then they even put him in the wide receiver one-on-ones. And he ended up running a couple dig routes against, I think, Max Melton. And he ended up catching a pass there. So coaches are doing a lot of cool things with Sion Vaki, which usually signals that, like, hey, he must be a guy they like. You know, this is probably a guy that front offices are liking maybe more than the general public too. So we should be paying attention to that. So that was the last guy I wanted to mention from the DB room. I have a couple edge rushers I want to mention, but I'm going to the American roster. I'm ready.
Yeah, we gotta move on. We're 45 minutes in. Shout out to everyone that's listening. We're on to the next one here right now. Let's just comment on one quarterback real quick. I want to comment about Spencer Rattler. I think pound for pound, he's been one of the most impressive quarterbacks in this entire Senior Bowl. For me, just the way he plays, I would like to say the aggressiveness ultimately has something to do with that. He's pushing the ball down the field. Like, no one here has any chemistry with anybody. Everyone's going to make mistakes. Everyone is trying to understand things better with the quarterback coach after the play. Spencer Rattler's like, I'm going to screw up just like everybody else, but I'm also going to make bigger plays. So, hey, shout out to him for it. And I think he's showed out because of it as well.
Yeah, I like how Rattler kind of has worked his feet through his progressions. I liked how he's kind of used his eyes. Other guy I'd probably mention is Michael Pratt, just because of how much ties he's kind of been getting to Denver lately. He had probably, I'd say, the best throw of the Senior Bowl so far. He had a pretty good corner route throw yesterday that was right over the extended safety's hands. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is kind of compared to the other quarterback group that I think had a lot more star power. This one's a little bit more underwhelming, but I mean, yeah, this is still a fine group. I don't think we've gotten to see as much of the downfield throwing as that we'd like to out of, guys like Rattler and Milton as much. But yeah, still a fine group. We did get to see Joe Milton run some design quarterback run stuff. But yeah, onto the running back group. Any of these guys really stand out for you?
Ray Davis, just his body type.
Yep.
Stands out to me very
I like
very
Ray Davis. I mean, he was the guy I actually want to mention. We talked about you're not usually able to see a lot of guys like showing off their vision. I actually did see a couple of Ray Davis runs where I was like, okay, like you see the cutback lanes. You're manipulating defenders with your eyes before hitting different holes. So I had Ray Davis down as well.
He reminds me, okay, so body size wise, very much CJ Anderson going on there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Very, very much CJ Anderson. And I like my running backs shorter and bigger, built low to the ground type running backs. They're going to be able to withstand contact. I've seen it 1,000 times now. And Ray Davis is a very, very successful running back at Kentucky. Boy, did he have a productive year. So yeah, I think he's been good. I think he's been solid. Like I said in the last one, running backs, you can only show me so much at events like this, but Ray Davis has stood out to me.
Yeah. Only other guy I want to mention, my guy Cody Schrader. Again, we mentioned not a lot to see. I'm usually just looking for how guys look running routes and blocking and pass protection. Cody Schrader, they did run one-on-one with linebacker pass rushing drills. Cody Schrader looked good protecting the quarterback, which isn't a surprise if you watch his tape. So I still think Cody Schrader is going to be one of those day 3 backs that ends up he could be a guy that ends up being a 3-down back next year and a sneaky fantasy pickup in weeks 1 through 4. But yeah, on to the receiver class. A bit really crazy group just because, I mean, we have such different body types when we talk about guys like Johnny Wilson coming onto the field.
Yeah, right.
And
It
then,
was
you have
crazy.
AD Smith as the complete polar opposite, like at like the 5'9", 5'8" type size. Who is your favorite out of this group?
Whew. Okay, my favorite out of this group, I think Lad McConkey has been the flashiest, right? That's what I would say.
Another
He's been the
guy
one
who this
making
is
the highlights.
built for
I
Mobile.
Yes, there's are you talking about the kid from Tulane by chance?
He
Oh,
had a
I
couple.
thought you said another one is like that. My bad. Um, the kid from Tulane has been shown out too in those one-on-ones.
Yeah.
He is quick, man. That kid is quick. Now my favorite though, I think Jamari Thrash is kind of under the radar here as a guy that has been pretty good, especially today. I didn't pay attention much to the wide receivers yesterday, so Frankie, if you sucked yesterday, you're gonna have to tell me. But I thought you did pretty good today. I
Yeah.
thought Jamari Thrash was good. And then you mentioned it, Johnny Wilson, man.
Just
Johnny
huge.
Wilson is humongous compared to these guys. And I think his ability to move at his size is very special. Um, is he running routes like Lad McConkey? No, but you have to keep in mind the guy's almost 6'7". I think that's important for people to put in perspective in their evaluations. And he had a really good day today as well. I think especially working inside. When they put him inside, he was killing everybody.
Yeah. I just want to highlight a couple of day 3 guys that I think could end up like being solid NFL receivers. Maybe not like, standout guys, but guys I think will help out locker rooms. Ryan Flournoy, I'm not sure I'm saying that. The Southeast Missouri State, I think that was the school product. He's been really consistent. He is a guy that's been getting, I mean, we were talking about a lot of these quarterbacks are throwing underneath right now. He has been a consistent underneath target for guy. He has good size. He makes plays after the catch. He's been running decent routes. He's not creating a ton of separation, but again, a guy that has good technique when it comes to catching with his hands, a guy that offers a good frame for quarterbacks to throw to, and has just been a consistent target who I've really liked. If there was a guy who I could see, coming in next year and being a 6th, 7th round pick who ends up with 500-600 yards, maybe more, wouldn't be shocked if it's a guy like him. And then I wanted to highlight Marcus Rosemy Jackson. It's a crazy name. The Georgia receiver, he's another just like, when you look at his body type, he's 6'1", 205. I think he could kind of be an X on the outside for an NFL team who he just looks the part of an NFL receiver. Another guy we've seen kind of make catches outside of his frame, catches with his hands. He's a decent kind of underneath option, I think. I think another solid receiver. He's not going to wow you with his ability to separate or any of his athletic traits. But another guy I see is just if you're a team that needs outside guys and you have extra day 3 picks, I think these are solid options for you to kind of take and try to develop because I think they are just NFL bodies. They looked like NFL receivers, even if it isn't at a super high degree. And these are guys whose names I hadn't heard beforehand. And I mean, those are the types of guys when we talk about nowadays, we have rookie receivers going for like 1,400 yards. You got to keep your eyes on those guys that are showing you those small things in these camps because, I mean, you never know when the next Puka Nacua is going to turn his head.
I think you're absolutely right, and that is a great blocker too. For Broncos fans, pay attention to the blocking wide receivers. Sean Payton really likes those. I would be shocked if he took a guy that wasn't a good blocker, honestly. Well, I just got a question. What do you think of Johnny Wilson, real quick, for me, just for my brain? What do you think?
I like Johnny Wilson a lot. I think he's obviously. You're not giving Johnny Wilson a complete route tree. You're probably not playing him 60, 70 snaps a game, whatever. But I think for what his role will be, which especially if you have a younger quarterback who maybe struggles with some accuracy issue, is just a 3rd down option, a decent blocking threat, a good red zone target.
So
I will say
he's like an outside wide receiver?
I don't think he plays at tight end at all. I think he's fine at receiver.
I think he's a power slot.
Maybe. I think when we talk about in today's league, like, because he's what, like 6'6", 230, right? Yeah. When we talk about today's league where we still see like, I mean, and I'm not trying to compare these guys whatsoever at all in skill set. That's probably going to sound like crazy comparison. When we talk about guys like Mike Evans, who are like 6'5.5", like 230-ish as well, like I think there is a role for Johnny Wilson in the NFL. And just again, when I watch the routes that he is best on, the things he does best, I think he's best playing near the sideline. I don't think he really is that good working over the middle. I think he is a lot better kind of being a big target on the outside that can either sit down in between, soft coverages. And I'm not talking about like over the middle. I'm talking like in between, like a deep and a shallow zone, or a guy that you just kind of hope can kind of outsize a guy on just some quick out routes. That's how I see him, at least.
Interesting. We evaluate him differently. Like, I look at a guy like Alan Lazard, right? Alan Lazard, 6'5", 227, runs a 4.55, really good blocker. I think Johnny Wilson's one of the best blocking receivers in this class for sure, from what I saw at Florida State. I think you want to utilize that closer to the line of scrimmage in the run game. I don't think necessarily at tight end. I don't think he's an inline guy. I don't want him blocking DNs, but on occasion. But I think there is a role there for him. I do. I think concentration drops were an issue at Florida State, but I look at his ability to run routes, and I think he's more nuanced than people are giving him credit. Is he an amazing route runner? No, because of his size, right? But I do think that he has an ability to do that. Like, if tight ends get open over the middle, I think Johnny Wilson can as well. I think he's a better mover than 99% of guys at his size. I think he's an incredible mover at his size. And I ultimately think that's where I'd want to play him.
How do you feel about his ability after the catch?
It's okay. I think it's good, but I don't think I think it's okay.
I think that is where I guess I come with my issues. I think he's like, I think for me at least, he does his best work before and during the catch, making catches at the catch point where corners or DBs just kind of can't interfere with him. But I guess that would be my only issue with if you're trying to really consistently utilize him over the middle, is just how much extra are you getting outside of just those, those quick hitters on just like the sit downs if you're running just like stick or something like that, where I do think he would be very useful.
And you know what, Frankie, what makes this conversation is so interesting is this is the exact conversation scouts are having about Johnny Wilson right now. It's the exact conversation. The conversation is, where does Johnny Wilson play? We think he's a good player. I think that's everyone's like, ooh, he has an interesting skill set. Everyone's just like, where the hell do we play this guy? That's what everyone's trying to figure out right now. Let's move on to the.
How'd you feel about this tight end group?
I think it's better than the first one.
I disagree, but go on.
Do you disagree? I like Bensonot. I do. I like him as H-back and tight end, and I think he makes really tough catches over the middle. See the best at route running? No, but he's made multiple catches in close coverage, tough catches. Jaheim Bell's an interesting weapon. Another, like, his length is going to be an issue. I don't know where the hell he plays in the league either. It's almost like I'd want to see him at fullback.
I feel that way with Jordan Morgan. That was a random shade at Jordan Morgan. He didn't deserve that, but that's there. I said it.
You hated him that much?
He's been struggling at Mobile. He's like his length. I think he measured in at 32-inch arms. Like he's really good at doubling down on down blocks in the run game. But yeah, if you're gonna put him outside against some of these guys that have these 34-inch wingspans, he's gonna get beat a little bit. But
I do agree. Jordan Morgan has struggled. It's been up and down, though. I don't think it's just been bad. I think
it hasn't just been bad.
I think Jordan Morgan has had some good reps as well. But I don't know. Like, Jaheim Bell is weird because he has the skill set of a wide receiver, but he's 244 pounds, kind of, and he's only 6'1". So I don't really know what to think of him. Jared Wiley is a specimen. He's had a lot of he's 6'6". He looks all of 6'6" too. He's had a couple concentration drops and stuff like that, but a guy that I would like to see develop. I just see, I guess, why I like this more is just because I see more potential out of it.
Yeah, I don't really have too many thoughts on this tight end group. Bell was getting moved around a little bit, which I thought was a little interesting. But this tight end group in general, I just don't think is that inspiring this year. There are some decently interesting pieces, but I think overall, outside of guys like Brock Bowers, who, again, tight end, receiver, offensive weapon, whatever you want to call him, I don't think there necessarily is like a ton of like high level day one starting prospects this year, but I do think there are some interesting guys on day 3 at the tight end position.
Let's move on to the O-line, though. I have so many notes on this group of O-linemen, Frankie. It's kind of stupid how many notes I have on
All
these.
right, let's go top to bottom. I want to go Bo Limmer first because Bo Limmer's really impressed me. When we talk about this center group, this is a guy that I think we'll keep talking about. I really want us to get more of a mauler at center this year to fit what Sean Payton wants to do. Bo Limmer, I think, is a guy that can fit that role. The Arkansas product, he's 6'5" or 6'4", 300 pounds. He's like Max Unger, and this is a guy that we'll get to him in a little bit when we talk about Devondre Sweat, who's 360 pounds. This is a guy that was able to stand up to Devondre Sweat in multiple one-on-one situations. He's been super good downhill blocking. Another guy that I think probably slips to the 4th, 5th round, but another guy I wouldn't be shocked if in 2-3 years is a starting center somewhere just because of the talent I see and just kind of the aggressiveness he plays with. I think he brings a lot to a running game. Did you end up seeing a lot of Bo Limmer?
I did. I respect Bo Limmer for how aggressive he came out, especially day one, man. He had reps where he was firing out of his stance. And I don't know if his agent was like, hey, man, you need to stand out in this, and that's why he was doing that. But he had reps where it was like, whoa, Bo Limmer came out of nowhere on that one. Like, I didn't expect that aggressiveness. Even in pass pro, he's playing aggressive. So he definitely was a standout to me. He had one rep today where he got killed by Sweat, though. They say that you want to, if you get ran through right up the middle by these guys, you're supposed to chop your feet and kind of die slow. Bo Limmer, there's definitely Vach Lombardi said it best. He said there's definitely death involved on that play.
I love it.
Yeah.
A guy thinking, what do you think about Tyler Guyton? I've seen a ton of Tyler. What'd you say? You're lower than people?
I'm lower than the hype's going on right now.
Same.
He's been very impressive. Don't get me wrong, very impressive. Lower than where people are projecting him, though.
I think tackle is one of those positions for me that as I've done this more year over year, like I truly don't care as much about the massive frame, super athletic guys. I really just want a technician at tackle. I would like a tackle that has really good hands, has really good hand placement, has really quick feet, like those things. And I mean, any offensive line coach is probably like, no shit. But like, yeah, typically the guys that are actually good at pass blocking are better offensive linemen than the guys that are just like 6'8", 370 pounds and also move pretty quick. Like weird thing that keeps happening. But I think he's kind of just a good example of that. Like, don't get me wrong. The plays where they're able to run those crack tosses and you're able to get Tyler Guyton sprinting ahead and he gets to lay a hit into an offense or a DB, those are going to be really fun plays. He's obviously a 6'7", 330-pound human that runs like a 5'1", whatever the hell he's going to end up running. He's going to be very fast for his size. Like, obviously those things are going to look great, but man, he has a long ways to go as a tackle that I think I'm seeing a lot of people talk about like, oh, this is a guy that can find his way sneaking into the first round. And I don't see that right now.
I think he will.
You think he will? I mean, don't get me wrong. I think he totally could based on what the NFL was thinking. I guess I'm just kind of sitting here saying, really? Like, okay, who would you?
Okay. Yeah, this is what I'll say about Guyton. I think Guyton's ability to get to his land spot in his pass pro to get like the ability, you know how they say there's quick D linemen are quick off the snap and stuff like that. Tyler Guyton is so quick off the snap, and he gets to his landmark and squares up whoever he is blocking so well. So he does have a base to work with there where it's like not only does he have that frame, he has unreal athletic ability to get to a spot fast. Like that is something that I want to see. Boy, though, is he like a project? He's winning so many of these reps, just like I'm so big and I'm so athletic, I can kind of stay in front of you. I'm just kind of mirroring. What the hell are my hands doing, though? They're low. Mm-hmm. I'm into you kind of like this. And then also I'm leaning with my head. The technique is a little crazy. He's winning, and it makes it even that more impressive that he's winning these reps.
Yeah.
Because he is big and fucking athletic, Tyler Guyton. So I do understand where the hype is coming from here. Ultimately, I do think that's going to end up getting him drafted early too, Frankie. I do because there's going to be a guy, some coach for sure that is like, I'm going to coach him so well. I'm getting him, his hands will be better. And then also he kind of just catches. He
Yeah.
doesn't punch, he catches.
That's it. And I mean, we'll talk about this, but I mean, like, I think what you just said is such a good point. And I mean, this is such a trust exercise. It's like he is such a test of how much do you trust your offensive line coach. I mean, we've gotten into this how many times? How many truly like good or even like I guess great or even good offensive line coaches are there in the league right now? 6? Like, how many teams are truly saying right now, like, we have a good offensive line coach that we trust with developing our offensive line? Not many teams have that level of a guy. So, like, this is going to sound like a hot take. Like, if I'm sitting here right now, like today, and I needed a tackle to draft, I think I'm taking Roger Rosengarten over Tyler Guyton. And yes, people are probably going to hear that and be like, you're fucking crazy. Yeah, maybe I would much rather have the guy that has that safe of a floor, and I don't need to say, because how many teams are just going to, like, okay, you know, we're saying what? Tyler Guyton's probably a year, 2, maybe 3 years away. Can most teams say that they know who their offensive line coach will be in 2 years? Their offensive coordinator, their head fucking coach? Like, this is a guy that's a project that you need offensive stability and a plan, I think, to develop. And sadly, most teams just don't have that luxury. That, like, again, like what I said might sound crazy, but like Roger Rosengarten is a guy that, like, again, I think if you had to start him this year, you totally could. That has so much value in today's NFL where you need 5 decent linemen more than you need 2 really good linemen, you know? So having a guy like that I think day one on his entire rookie contract, I think is a startable asset for you. I don't know, man. So that was my rant.
I do I don't mind that rant at all. I think I'm a little higher than you, but I'm lower than the consensus.
Yeah.
Guidance.
I don't know, man. I haven't seen enough to me to be like
the 12th pick stuff. I'm not here for with Guyton.
I don't not even close.
I don't see that, especially in this tackle class, guys.
That's the other part of it.
I just watched Tylese Fuaga on the other side. With all due respect, Guyton pales in comparison, I think, to him. Like, I guess that's kind of what I'm talking about. I do think, though, like, if Tyler Guyton develops into a really good tackle, I will not be shocked at all. I won't be. If he finds himself in a good situation with a good offensive line coach and he gets coached up, Tyler Guyton has all the tools to become one. Compared to, and I want to bring us to Patrick Paul, who everyone else is marveling at, 6'7", 333 pounds from Houston. Patrick Paul is exactly the way you talked about Guyton. I'm going to talk about Patrick Paul.
Yeah.
Patrick Paul does everything Guyton just said, except he has no knee bend to me at all. The guy gets ran through up the middle all the time because he has no knee bend. You can't be 6'7" and have no knee bend. That won't work at offensive tackle. I can't stress to you enough about how important knee bend is on the offensive line. It's huge. Your hat can't be up here. Like, lowest man wins. People tell you that all the time. You can't stand straight up and then have an anchor. We see it with Mike McGlinchey sometimes. You can't do that. You can't be that tall and have no knee bend. And Patrick Paul hasn't shown me any knee bend. I'm seeing lean forward almost every single time he gets into a pass set and contact's about to happen. He worries me. I understand the marvel, and this guy is huge. The wingspan's crazy. I like all of that's fantastic. I haven't seen anything so far to lead me to believe that he's an NFL starting caliber tackle. And I feel bad shitting on these guys because I'm about to just like gush over all these other offensive linemen here in a second. But Patrick Paul is one where it's like, man, it's the hype over what I think it should be.
No, I completely agree. And I mean, last little point about Patrick Paul. You mentioned his length. Everyone was so hyped when he measured in. This is a guy that, from what I've seen, like, he's not playing with that length. His punches are slow. He lets too many guys get into his chest. And as you said, he doesn't really have the anchor to withstand that. So far too often, this guy's getting literally walked back into the quarterback's path. So it's like, you know, again, we talk about a guy who has this massive frame, who has all these, you know, tools, but it's like, unless you really know how to utilize those tools, what really are there? So yeah, I completely agree where he's another guy where you're going to have a lot of faith in your development system. you are going to have to truly not force this guy in the field too early because, I mean, I think that's just how a lot of bad habits for him are going to develop. But yeah, like you said, he's a guy where I think the frame is exciting, but as far as the overall like actual buildup of his physical profile as a prospect, I think it is a little bit less than what it was. I want to go. We'll lightning around some of these other guys, unless you want to fully cover some of these other guys.
No, I think those are the two guys I fully wanted to cover. We'll lightning round some of these other offensive linemen. Sorry, Frankie, I got really deep.
I'm so good to like that, dude. I was thinking about this in the shower earlier. I think about prospects in the shower, baby. All right,
I have so many notes on this American roster's offensive linemen.
Yeah,
I could go all day about these guys. I thought Christian Jones from Texas really impressed me.
Oh yeah.
I was sitting there figuring, okay, we're looking at a day 3 player here is what I initially thought. And if you can get him day 3, now I'm ecstatic. He has an anchor to him, Christian Jones. That's what I really like about him. He has an anchor to him. He can sit down on you fast and recover on that. He almost can't stand up straight up sometimes and die slow, like what you're supposed to do in these one-on-ones. You're really just supposed to anchor down and do all of that. Christian Jones was really impressive to me. And then also Charles Turner, this guard from LSU, really good, man.
Yes.
Really
He took some center snaps too.
Yeah, Charles Turner, I need to go back and watch the game film on. I haven't watched it. He's had an impressive Senior Bowl. Senior Bowl.
Okay, I got two quick. One thing I wanted to say about Christian Jones too. He's another example where, like, when I talk about these technicians over these athletes, Christian Jones is another guy with a ton of starting experience at Texas, and it showed. This is a guy that did not lose a lot of these one-on-one pass rush reps because he was just ready for all the different counters these guys were throwing at him. He has the experience that, like, again, last thing I'll say, not trying to beat up on these other guys, but when I talk about like Tyler Guyton possibly be a first rounder, like, I'd say based on these first couple of days of practice, like, I think Christian Jones has been better than him. Another guy I'll mention in just a second, I think Javon Foster has been better than him. And then when we go on the other side, I think Talise Fauga has been better than him, I'd say. I think you'd agree with that. And then I can't even think of who the other tackles were, but like, I'd say he's probably the 4th or 5th best tackle at the Senior Bowl. And I guess that just kind of stresses me when I'm talking about, and obviously, again, you're projecting how a guy will develop, whatever. But that was my last little thought. And then other guy I wanted to mention, I just mentioned Christian Haynes.
Christian Haynes, yeah, he's been good.
Another plug-and-play starter on the O-line.
He had a really good day today as well.
Yeah, this dude's tough as shit. This is going to be another guy that's just day 1 starter on an interior. He's another guy that I think can play both sides pretty easily if you want to have him play left or right side. He has just been a powerhouse. He went a little viral today because he was scrapping. Well, not even he was scrapping. He just frustrated the hell out of Jordan Jackson, the LSU defensive lineman, just because he's just a brick wall. So, yeah, he was another guy I liked. And then I just wanted to highlight Javon Foster, who's another guy I liked. Really good outside zone blocking tackle, really good length, powerful guy. Like, him and Schrader were both guys I liked a lot just because of how I saw them translate into the NFL, and that showcase today on these runs where they're doing a lot of this zone blocking. He's great at that stuff. So he was another guy that really impressed me today. Any other offensive linemen you want to touch on from this group?
No, I think we hit on him. Just like I said, like Frankie hit on him. I totally agree with this. American roster's offensive line is so talented, man.
Yeah.
It's really insane how talented this group is. And it's been fun to watch. It's been really
Denver needs to like just pull from this pool. Seriously. Like it's one of those things where, like, I mean, we've talked about it. This team needs to do, the Broncos I'm talking about, needs to do whatever they can to acquire more like picks, just more picks, day 3, day 2, whatever. They need more of these young players. I truly believe, like, again, me and Joey have been watching draft classes now for however many years, like, and truly trying to go in depth, I'd say, in more recent years. I don't want to, over speak. I'm not trying to sound too hypey, and it's probably just because we're in the middle of this draft class. This might be one of the more talented draft classes I think we've gotten to do, if not the most talented. When I think about the amount of talent in just like
4 rounds,
like, right, it's not even just the top 25 or top 50 players. There are like 100, at least 100 to 125 players. And that probably has a lot to do with NIL and transfer portal kind of pushing a lot of the cream to these programs that we can actually get eyes on. But there are just so many guys this year I'm very interested in Denver finding. And they're at a lot of premium positions that Denver needs help with. So, like, man, Like yes, it might suck to lose out on some of these veteran players, but man, if you could get a couple day 3 picks for a guy like Justin Simmons, or, a day 2 and a day 3 pick for a guy like Justin Simmons, and you invest them into one of these offensive linemen we talked about and one of these defensive linemen we talked about, like, that accelerates your rebuild, I think, so much. But that was my little tangent there about, like, please, Denver, just get more picks, because it's a great class. Everywhere, I feel like.
Yeah, love it, man. Love it.
All right, defensive line.
D-line here, D-line. I want to start off with Darius Robinson, the boy from Mizzou. I am happy he's getting his flowers.
You are right.
He is fucking good, man. The
flying upwards
hands, the shock in his hands, the wingspan, like everything about him is really, really good. The athleticism at the size is really good. His ability to play run is really, really good. He's a load to block. And, I think the question with him and why some people were lower on him, Frankie, is like people are questioning, can he play edge? I think the answer is yes, he can play edge. And then they're like, can he play interior defensive lineman? Yes, he can play interior defensive lineman. I don't think that this is your tweener. I think this is your versatile player.
Mm-hmm.
That's what kind of makes Darius Robinson the player he is and what makes him special. He has go-to things that he can do. He has that push and pull swim. I saw it today. I saw all the way in all the film going up to this that makes him so good. Just the straight up bull rush, he's really good at. The long arm he can do. He has a special little package to him, and I think he comes into this edge group, this defensive line group, and automatically is a plus run defender in the NFL on your team immediately. And you just continue to develop him as a pass rusher, especially from the interior. He's versatile. You can be able to play him in multiple positions. I'm happy he's getting his flowers, and I ultimately think that he's going to be a first-round pick.
Easily. He's absolute freak show. I mean, we'll see how he tests, but based on how he's played, it looks like he's going to test like an absolute freak. Another guy kind of like Latu, where, I mean, so much of what he does is through his hands and his technique, which is like one of those things where, like, it's so much easier to see stuff like that translate than it is when it's just like a really explosive pass rusher playing against lesser competition, because those guys are going to just run faster than these other guys. But when you talk about Darius Robinson is able to take on mismatches along the interior. He's able to go outside and win with speed. He's able to win with power. As you were mentioning with his wingspan, this is a guy with an 84-inch wingspan. Patrick Paul, the 6'7" tackle we were talking about, only has a 2-inch longer wingspan. Like, this is a guy with incredible vines on him, and he's already 6'5", 286.
And he uses it. That's the other part.
Incredibly well.
Patrick Paul doesn't always use it.
Like, right. Quick punch, quick get off for this guy. Yeah. Like, and again, I was talking about Sion Vaki and how the coaches were lining him up all over, which clearly is a good sign. Darius Robinson is getting put everywhere. They are putting this man on the edge. They're putting him inside. I saw him playing some shaded one tech. Like, they are putting him all over the defensive front, and he is doing it. Like, I don't think I've really seen him like truly lose a rep yet. He has been excellent every single time he is on the field, a true difference maker, a guy that, like you said, I think is slingshotting himself into that first round. When we talk about, I think, this kind of group of versatile edge rushers that have the ability to kind of move inside, when we talk about guys like Braylon Trice, when we talk about guys like, I mean, even guys like Latu or Jared Verse that can kind of move inside, I don't know if I'd say Darius Robinson is in that tier, but I mean, I don't think he's too far behind it, which is kind of crazy to say. I mean, at this point in the process, where if he has a testing day where he tests better than some of these guys, like, is there a world where we're saying Darius Robinson is a top 3, top 4 edge, or, I mean, pass rusher in this class? I think it's possible.
I think it's very possible.
I think it's very possible. Very
possible. Who else stands out to you in this list, though, of defensive linemen? Yeah, go ahead.
I got a couple. I don't know where my mouse went. I want to highlight.
I'll shoot one. Braden Fiske.
That's who I was going to say.
Has impressed me a little bit. Excuse me. Sorry. I think that he needs to work on his counters pretty big time. His jump off the snap, though, is incredible. I think, like, he has a base to work off of because of that. And that's why, like, if I'm looking to project him, I'm like, man, he can become into something good. If I can continue to work his pass rush moves, his counters off those pass rush moves, he's going to be a really good player. That jump is special. That's something he can really work with, right? That's something he can develop with. You like that he already has that in his bag. Yeah, I don't know. Like I would say the con, what I saw from Florida or from what I saw from the Senior Bowl is like so many times he gets that quick jump and it dies so fast,
Yep.
man. Like it dies so fast because he doesn't have any moves off of it. It's just quick jump. Oh, I'm blocked. What's going on? I just need him to continue to develop those moves off of that. Another note on him, just being there live and paying attention to him because I was like, who is this? I texted you about him. I asked Frankie. I said, "Who is this Boston College kid?" It's like, "Oh wait, that's Florida State." It was Braden Fiske. He is a really good worker too. His motor runs hot. Like he is the first in that drill almost every single time. I was watching him do drills on the working double teams and stuff like that. Boy, is he working hard. Like that's one thing I can absolutely say about him as well. So that probably lends into his character.
Yeah. And he's a guy who, like, he might have some issues. He only has a 31-inch arms. He's not going to be, I don't think that this is a guy that's going to rocket himself into those top 2 days. But again, this is a guy with great first step explosiveness, really good short area quickness. He does have, again, he doesn't have the counter moves, but he does have like some initial swipe moves he's able to go to generate some pass rush, where his role might be a little limited. There are going to be teams that might not fall in love with him, but I do think that this is a player with upside to kind of add to your defensive line, your trench room, that you can get in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. Because again, maybe he has a crazy testing day and really launches his way up, but just kind of the way I see his profile kind of filling out, I think he's kind of one of those guys that might maybe slip through the NFL's cracks a little bit. But again, based on what we've seen, I think he is going to be a maybe not productive player on every single down, but definitely will be able to fill a role. And I mean, I think he will be able to bring some special teams versatility, being able to just, push the pocket on punt team or whatever, and whether it's on field goal team too. Just a guy that I think will be able to come in on third downs and sub packages and maybe give you a little bit of a pass rush. Definitely an interesting name who I enjoyed watching a little bit.
Let's move on to Devondre Sweat. I'm wondering, Frankie, where did all that, like, I don't know. I was watching him at Texas, and maybe I didn't watch enough of him, but I was like, man, I think Devondre Sweat thinks he's a 3-tech. And then he comes to the Senior Bowl, and all he does is bull rush. It's just funny. It's just funny. No one can stop his bull rush, obviously. He's massive. Massive. Does he not have a weight?
So that was one thing I was going to say. He did not weigh in. He's waiting to weigh until the combine, which is something I wanted to touch on.
Oh, wow. I didn't even realize that. He is a powerhouse, though.
He was 362 when he was last weighed in at Texas.
Yes. And when he starts going forward, no one can stop him. I just watched him at Texas, and it felt like he had it felt like he wanted to do so many finesse moves, and I've rarely seen that at the Senior Bowl. It's just weird. Like, I don't know why he's pass rushing different at the Senior Bowl than he did in college.
Yeah. I'll give my take, and I might be on a bit of a different spectrum. I've been very underwhelmed with Devondre Sweat. Like, I think, like, nose tackles, pure zero techs are one of my favorite positions to scout. It's maybe because it's just like it's pretty simple to see what you're looking for.
It is.
And don't get me wrong, Devondre Sweat, it's fucking massive. Like, that's obvious. He's a very big guy. But I mean, we were talking about this before. I just don't get that same, like, oh, this is a guy that you're putting in and he's gonna shut down the run. Like, this isn't like your ass kicker in the middle, I don't think. And that might sound mean. I see too many lazy reps. And that's, again, something that makes me question why he's not weighing in. I saw a lot of reps where, if he's not winning right away off that first jump, he's just kind of standing there. Because, I mean, I just don't think he has the true work rate or stamina. Yeah, I did not come away as impressed with Devondre Sweat as I really thought I would. And maybe you feel otherwise. I was a little bit let down.
Okay, I'm just no, I don't feel otherwise, really. I don't. From what I saw in his college film, I don't at all.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this on the show before with Devondre Sweat. I'm wondering what the hell's going on with this weight. If he weighed in at 360 pounds, what's going to be worse? Like, why not weigh in?
At 370. Like, that's what I mean. I'm not saying he like looks
what's
bigger.
going on here? What like that's seriously a question that I think we have to contemplate here. He doesn't look so big that he's unplayable right now. Like, I'm just wondering why the hell he didn't weigh in. If we were all assuming this guy's going to be 360, unless I just don't understand what's going on.
It just, I don't know. It bugs me, but it's one of those things where I think in recent years we've seen some really good nose tackles kind of come out of the draft. And I guess T'Vondre Sweat, because of his size, and I think just because he plays at a big school like Texas, is just kind of given that nose tackle one kind of label. And I'm not saying he isn't. It's just one of those things where I look at it and I'm not like I don't think this is a guy that you plop on your defensive line and he takes it from being like, I don't think he kind of boosts your defensive line a tier. I don't think he's that level of nose tackle. And I feel like that's kind of how he's been pitched, you know? Like, do you think, I don't know. I don't really know a good comparison, but that's just kind of the way I felt. Like, I don't see a true difference making, like, I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit too harsh. I haven't fallen in love with T'Vondre Sweat like I usually do these massive nose tackles. And I think to me that just says something. And, you know, maybe that's just a gut feeling. But, like, I fall in love so much quicker with, I feel like, these 325-pound guys that this guy's even bigger and seemingly more athletic. Like, there are flashes of him being very athletic, but you just don't see it consistently.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other of these defensive linemen you want to touch on? Otherwise, we want to get to the edge group.
Miles Cole from Texas Tech, extremely athletic. Until he learns how to pass rush, though, he's going to continue to get his ass kicked.
They were moving him outside a little bit, which I thought was interesting. But, yeah, I didn't get to see too much from him.
He played a lot of outside, from the edge. And he just has no pass rush moves, really, in his arsenal. So he just needs to figure that out. Extremely athletic, though. And then Nelson Caesar here from Houston. He's really impressed me. He's just kind of like a pass rush specialist guy. He's been good.
I'm kind of shocked because from what I took away from him, like his length was probably the biggest thing I liked. Like he had a couple really good long arms. He only has 33-inch arms. Like I was really expecting him to have like 34, 35-inch vines. Cause like, again, I think one of the best things I saw him do was truly turn that speed to power long arm against dude's chest. Like I think, and it's funny looking back because I think it might have been a lot of reps against like Patrick Paul, you know, as we were talking about, doesn't really use his length that well. But yeah, he's been a guy that really impressed me as well. I think there's actually been the group of DPRs kind of at this event, I think has been pretty strong. You know, we were talking about Adissa Isaac on the other team. There was another guy from Troy. I think it's Donovan Solomon. Is that his name? I gotta go look now. Javon Solomon. He's been pretty good. And then Austin Booker, who I didn't like too much yesterday, he actually had a pretty good bounce back to today where he was linking together a couple moves. So a decent DPR group here at the Senior Bowl.
Totally. Do you want to move on? I don't have any notes on these inside linebackers. Frankly.
I only have a couple. Jackson Sermon I hadn't seen before. He looks really good. Very good eyes playing the run game. I liked what he was doing in coverage. He was the guy that I'll have to go back and watch because Jackson Sermon looks talented. Nathaniel Watson, same way, but maybe to a slightly lesser degree, but he's also bringing a lot more size, which I like. He was very feisty in coverage. And so both of these guys I thought were probably the two best linebackers I got to watch. Trevin Wallace did have a decent breakup, but those are the only notes I had on the inside linebackers.
All right, let's move on to corners here. I have or DBs just in general. Yeah. I have one I want to highlight. I'm forgetting his name. He had such a ridiculous day, Frankie, today.
Was it Jarvis Brownlee?
Yes, he was incredible. He was so good today. I didn't do much of the DBs yesterday, so you're gonna have to let me know how he did yesterday. But today he was the best DB on the field. It wasn't even close.
Really?
He was so good in one-on-ones and stuff, Frankie. He was awesome. I was getting him confused for the Kentucky cat, Andra Phillips, but no.
I like him.
Yeah, because he's wearing this chrome helmet. I couldn't tell who's who.
Bro, so many of the jerseys confuse the shit out of me. Thank God these rosters are numbered because I'm blind too.
Couldn't tell. He was really good though. Jarvis Brownlee was really, really, really good, and just seeing the measurables to go along with it, right? Or wait, is he only 5'10"?
Yeah,
he looked bigger out there to me. Okay, anyways, he was really good.
Love that. I've got a couple guys to highlight. Bo Brady, the safety from Maryland. Safeties are really hard. Like maybe it's just me. They're really hard to like get a good grasp on at the Senior Bowl. They're only really in the one-on-one drills with tight ends, which that's a very like only like you have to be a specific build of safety to really be able to run step for step with tight ends. Bo Brady did a nice job of that. And then out of some single highs, he was one of the few safeties I think was actually coming downhill and making plays on like the crossers over the middle or dig routes. So I liked Bo Brady. He seemed like just like a good football player. He seemed to have good instincts and just be flying around. He was always around the ball. Andrew Phillips, the guy that you confused with, I actually did like a lot. He was the Kentucky corner. His movement abilities were just really good. He was just like, I really liked his click and close, a lot of good start stop, good lateral mobility. He was a guy I liked a lot in one-on-ones. And then DJ James, this Auburn corner, really good. Like I came away being like, wow, like you're a guy, again, I don't know where you're going to end up going, but a guy you could see getting 400 or 500 snaps next year and not being horrible. He was decent on the inside and the outside. He was just playing really good sticky coverage, a guy I really liked. And then this Chris Abrams drain also had a good day for me. I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna no, go ahead.
That was the last guy. Chris Abrams drain was another guy I liked a lot. Just good movement. I liked how he looked in one-on-ones. Like we've said, this is such a hard environment for these CBs to come into and really make a name for themselves just because of the positions that they're put into. And yeah, so being able to see a lot of these guys that, again, we mentioned so many of these receivers were just like separation professionals. Being able to see guys like DJ James and Andrew Phillips be able to keep up in man coverage was just really inspiring for me. Like I haven't dove into this cornerback class a lot, but it seems like another one of those classes where the slight, the crumbs I'm getting of scouting the class, like I keep being like, man, like I don't think that there's necessarily like those true top 10 picks at corner, but this is another good corner class, I think.
Yeah, I'll ultimately agree with you, Frankie. Do you have any takes on William Monty, Georgia's long snapper?
I don't. I didn't want. I'll be honest. I thought about clicking through some punting snaps. I was gonna watch the Troy Taylor dude, but no, I did not. You'll be proud of me. I did not dive into the kicking and punting. I was able to resist.
Well, he has bigger hands than Michael Pratt by a little bit, which is crazy. For those that Michael Pratt, very small hands.
Oh no, did I not see that?
Yeah, 9 on the dot.
It's over. Oh, we're cooked.
It's 9 on the dot.
He's got the Drew locks.
Joe Milton with how big his arm is, not shocked at all. Massive hands.
Penix had big hands as well. Penix.
Yeah,
I really need to stop doing that.
Because
it sounds like penis.
This William Monty is good size long snapper at 6 foot 236. No, I'm kidding. Guys, if you listen to this all the way for an hour and 30 minutes, I love you. Comment #draft in the comments right now if you finished this with us. I love the draft season. Frankie loves the draft season. I really haven't even gone over much of the film yet. I'm just going off of what I saw, my eyes at the Senior Bowl. Frankie came over with the film. He's watched so much on all these guys, so shout out to him. One of the best evaluators I know. Go follow Frankie at Frankie Films right now. Follow me at JR Drafts. We need to get the whole Let's Talk Broncos crew down to Mobile next year. It would be crazy, the amount of content.
That's the dream.
We have. It would be crazy. But until next time, guys, go Broncos.